This time last year, our country went through a total lockdown to help limit the spread of the coronavirus. At the time, I don't think any of us expected that the pandemic's ripple effects would touch us in such a way that they have. While I'm optimistic that we'll get back to a sense of normalcy in the future, there's no doubt that it's a season that will forever shape the way we think about healthcare and personal well-being. It's not necessarily a bad thing though. I don't know about you, but I personally like clean surfaces, sanitized public spaces, and even going to a restaurant and seeing the cook wearing a face mask actually makes me feel a little more comfortable. And don't get me wrong, these are all personal preferences, of course. However, the overriding emotion that I have seen paralyzing our culture, including the church, is fear. Specifically, the fear of death. And I think equally fearful, the thought of pain and suffering. When pain and suffering, or even death, are possible outcomes for ourselves or someone we love, it's hard to limit our fear. It's a natural instinct to go into survival mode during a time of crisis, a period like the pandemic that we're experiencing right now. But as believers in Christ, how do we know when our fear is overriding our faith? How do we know when we're just being too overprotective, or maybe we're taking too much risk? Many of you know, if you watch my podcast on a regular basis or listen to it, that I like to conclude each episode with this short quip. And I talk about what faith actually is. I say faith is trusting and believing the unknown because of the known. In fact, Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:7, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." While faith cannot see what's ahead, it is inaccurate to think of faith merely as being blind. Because faith says, I am moving forward into the unknown because of what I already know, what I've already seen, what I've already experienced, the evidence for what has already gone before me, that God has protected, that He has provided for me every step of the way. And by the way, God has done all that for a great cloud of witnesses that have gone before us. Faith does not give us an opportunity to be ignorant or unreasonable. Of course, all sorts of risk needs to be mitigated in our lives. Otherwise, insurance or safety precautions in any context would be useless to the Christian. But faith does engage in a higher gear when we've done everything that we can to mitigate risk, we've sincerely prayed about the situation, and we seem to live in hesitation. And fear is what causes hesitation on every side of an issue, including this pandemic that we're all learning to process. I am simply asking you today, are you living in fear or are you living by faith? If you have personally considered your situation, you've prayed about it, you live without any hesitation, the Bible and common sense affirms your decision, I think that you have good reason to live in peace and without fear. But if you find yourself complacent, playing out scenarios in your mind, isolated from friends and family, or dabbling in conspiracy, drawing conclusions that do not align with reality, your faith might need to be engaged. You see, fear is something that should nudge us, but not drive us. It's something that should cause us to think, but not to dwell. It shouldn't be eliminated, but it can be limited. Now, what takes up more real estate in your mind? Is it faith or is it fear? Don't stop praying for our nation amid this COVID pandemic. These are challenging things in which we are all still trying to process. Hey, let's be gracious with one another in love, and let's be people of faith. Thank you for joining me on the Actual Faith channel and podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. And remember that actual faith is trusting and believing the unknown because of the known. Keep the faith.